I've self-published an illustrated children's book about deer hunting. The title of the book is I Am a Deer Hunter. I'll just show you on the screen here.
As soon as I picked it up and I've opened it, had no idea what to expect. And like just the illustrations, the way you've written, it just really resonated with me. We're doing something a little bit different today, so thank you for joining us here in YouTube land, Rob, virtually as we are. Do you want to tell the guys what I'm so excited about, mate?
Sure. So I've self-published an illustrated children's book about deer hunting. The title of the book is I Am a Deer Hunter. I'll just show you on the screen here. Look, there'll be a bit of reflection and glare, but I'll try and... So that's what it looks like if you went searching for it. So I Am a Deer Hunter by Rob Baldinger. It's basically a what I would call a bush poem style of writing that's fairly action-packed about a hunter pursuing wild deer in the mountains. And, you know, the book, I guess, it offers a glimpse into the deep pride and connection that I, as a hunter, feel for our way of life. And I guess finding a way to share that, particularly for the next generation, was very important to me. So it was written, you know, by me, for me. But then I realised, you know, what's another way that this can be shared beyond just to friends and family or performing it at a hunting expo. And I came up with the idea to have it illustrated and turned into a children's book format. And look, so far the reception, you said you weren't going to plug it, but before we jumped on, you had a glowing response to it, which has been blowing my mind, the way people have been receiving this. And it's definitely shown that there's an appetite for it and that there's been a desire for content that expands the storytelling side of hunting for a while, I think. There's definitely
100%, yeah. And as soon as I picked it up, like it's just, and I'm a really tactile person, like it feels nice as well. And I've opened it, had no idea what to expect. And like just the illustrations, the way you've written, it just really resonated with me. And I just think we need to celebrate the guys on the cutting edge and kind of breaking the mold and being able to talk about deer hunting in a way that hasn't really been spoken about. Like, I've never seen a book like this before, or is it like it feels like it's new?
No. Look, I've now done a number of courses and studied conventional children's picture book writing, and I do have some other manuscripts that I've worked on that I'm going or attempting to go through the conventional publishing route. And very early in that piece of study that I've done, so the courses that I've done, I was given a bit of guidance that, you know, I love the topic. Everyone loves the topic. Everyone loves getting back to their roots and doing something that is so traditional and been done for tens of thousands of generations, but there's definitely going to be challenges that you will face when you go down this path, and just to make you aware of those. And so I was very cognizant of that fact when I first started to write children's books. Yeah. And I've written a number of them, as I mentioned, and they're still in the works. And so I decided, while that was going on and while I pursued that, because I genuinely believe that the quality that can be created through conventional publishing, of the quality of the book, the print, the writing, the illustrations, particularly in Australia, is second to none. The books are fantastic that we produce, and I genuinely want to pursue that avenue right to the end with other stories that I've written. But this one was something that was a bit close for me. It's extremely, it's a very emotionally driven book. It's from my own lived experiences. So, you know, the themes are quite adult. And I know from my studies that children, they look up, you know, usually a few years above their age when they read something. They want to see someone just a bit older than them. But I did make a conscious decision with the way that this book is, to actually go right to almost parent age, or at least an older sibling or uncle or an auntie or something like that, to kind of be like, well, these people exist in the world and this is what they're about. And just to show that to children and to show it genuinely and truthfully was very important. So when I engaged the illustrator, first thing I said was, don't make the main character me. And would you believe it? He made the main character this, excellent character who does exist. They're out there, they're in the world, and there are more coming. And would you believe it? I have a 5-year-old daughter, and it almost, like, she looked at it and thinks, "Is that me, Dad, in the future?" And that's exactly what I saw when I saw the hand sketch that he had done. I didn't see the red hair and the features that were maybe quite similar to her. Yeah. Some other young girls that have read it, that I've seen little videos of them reading with their mum and dad, saying, she looks really pretty, and they feel like they're seen. They feel like they're opening a door to a different avenue of life, like being given permission, which shouldn't need to be given, but just exists. So this is probably going to do that. If I had my wildest dream, it would be that there will be people that will remember this in 15 years' time, when they're out hunting themselves solo, when they're 18 or 20 or 21, and they will see this as the stepping off point. It was the door that opened for them. Yeah, with a culture that surrounds it, of parents, uncles, aunties, grandparents, and an industry that supports it, and all these things combined, there's a pathway to a way of life that is second to none, in my opinion. What we do is the right path in life. If you have that in you, if you wish to be a hunter, or think you might be, or support it, we should all be able to do it in Australia. We do have those opportunities afforded to us.
And what I like about the book, and I'm not going to go into too much details, but the accuracy of what an actual hunt is like. There's the ebb and flow of
up and down, and this book could go on. It could be twice as long with just how much actually happens in a hunt. And look, and it's funny because the accuracy was important when I provided direction on the illustrations, but at the same time, what I really like about it is certain little features that change throughout, and the deer kind of look a little different each time, and there are some things within it that people who have that eye to detail will pick up on, but it doesn't distract from it, because when you're hunting in a rut type situation, like a fallow deer rut, you may see many different deer. It is chaos. It's actually quite chaotic. So that's kind of what happens throughout it. You see lots of deer, and you see lots of action, and you see the character really using their skills and knowledge that they've picked up along the way, whether they've self-taught or learned from somebody we don't know. But you see them making the calls, croaking back to the deer to lure him in, having that. Some passages about the study of shooting, which is something that does take time and should take time to get proficient at. I'm by no means a proficient shooter. I'm learning too, having come in as an adult myself. And so that symbiotic connection through to the fingertip is something very much like a feeling that you are, as you're about to take a shot, and your breathing's right, and you've settled, and you just know, like, you have a confidence that needs to exist before you pull the trigger, because, as we know, the goal is a single shot. And once you've done it, you can't take it back. And these are very adult themes. These are things that kids who read this more and more will want to see that depth and discuss that depth with their parents or with the people in their lives that have shared this with them. They want to know about hunting. They want to know about the ethics and morals. They want to know about the detail and the features of the rifles, or the packs, or the skins, or the antlers. And hopefully it'll just get them to start, it'll bring them down the rabbit hole like the rest of us, and they'll start to learn more and educate themselves about the sort of majesty of these animals, but also the magic of this way of life and how special it is.
It really is special. And what I like about this, particularly as a storybook for a small human, is it's not a once and done. Like, I've read it multiple times, and every time I read it, I pick something else out of it. And it's almost like they're going into that practice land of this is what it would feel like. And when you go on a hunt, each hunt reveals something a little bit more, either about the environment or about yourself or about the equipment that you're using or whatever. And that's the thing that really resonated with me with your story book, is because it was like a hunt itself, because each time you you embark on that journey, something else immerses itself and you kind of get another light bulb moment. And I was like, you know, that's very elegantly done.
Well,
So
thank you. I mean, I commonly will say one of the big things that drew me into hunting was how every single time you go out, it is different to the time before. Like every adventure is a new adventure, which what else in life, and particularly as an adult, what else in life can you do that is different every single time?
exactly.
And challenges you every single time to a different degree. You walk a different track, you come back a different way, you see a different animal in a different scene. Like every single thing, it's never repetitive. It's never boring.
Yeah.
I mean, like long sits waiting on a wallow or something, you know, maybe is boring. You might kick a few stones, or you might go into some deep depths of your imagination when you're in those situations. But this one is more of the style of hunting that I've, as a new hunter, been really into, which is that I do like to move around. I do like to see things, experience everything, which means I'm less successful. But I get to do more. I get to be more active. I get to see more. So I mean, that's great feedback, because it's absolutely something with this style of writing that you want to hear. Like, it is poetry. That's the intent. That the rhyme and the meter and the detail, particularly with illustrations behind it, might be you might conceive it slightly differently every time that you read it, and in a different frame of mind, depending on the type of day you've had, you might see it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. And particularly around a campfire, this sort of stuff that's what I do. If I go out hunting with mates, I'll crack out a little bush poetry, and this is one I would go to pretty commonly when out hunting, because it's got all the elements that people love about going out, the banter of campfires and being out hunting with mates or family. Yeah.
And it's funny, the first time I read it, I was like, because we traveled quite a lot with my family in caravans and going out west and all of that sort of stuff. And quite often you'd go to the little caravan parks and there'd be a bush poet there.
Yeah,
you know,
they're everywhere, lurking in the shadows, aren't they? Just waiting for a chance to recite their poetry. Yeah.
And as the first time I read it, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm at like Normanton Caravan Park, sitting by a fire with old mate who's just whipped out something and decided that he wants to share it with those of us sitting around, you know, and that it has got that really authentic sitting by the campfire feel.
That's great. I mean, bush poetry is designed to entertain, but also I think to catch people a little off guard. Like, they don't expect, when they first hear it, the person's talking and they might get a little bit of a cringe at first because maybe of the rhyme or maybe the way it's delivered. But then as they get into it and the flow gets on, you should be kind of a little bit like wanting to know what the next line is, sort of predicting the rhyme, but maybe not being able to because it's challenging enough like that. And I definitely get that from how I was exposed to bush poetry, which was at like bush poem events or in country towns. So I was in Scone, where I was living, which is the Upper Hunter of New South Wales, when I first properly went to an event where people delivered original bush poetry, and that inspired me to write some of my own. And that's sort of where this has come from. I've got many others that are too adult and not kids' books at all. Mostly about my wife, because that's what a lot of the bush poets will write, humorous stories about taking fun at themselves or of their better halves. And I've got my own fair share of those. And so, yeah.
We're good material, that's for certain.
Oh, yeah, and you get a laugh. And sometimes even anyone who writes stuff, after a period of time, you'll sometimes go back and read things and think, did I even write that?
Yeah.
Like, it almost seems foreign to you after a period of time when you let it rest. And this one was one that I had let rest for a while. It was written a number of years ago, and it was only when doing this children's book study that I went looking at, here are all the elements that make up a normal children's book, the structure. You set it up, then you get straight into the action and a series of things happen. Then you get this high point, a crescendo, a peak, and then you get the outcome, and then you get a soft resolution. And I went, that's exactly like this bush poem that I wrote. Like, it ticks all those boxes. And then as I just read through it more, I thought it might be a bit bold. It might be a bit brave to assume that people are going to buy this for their children. But I just dove in. I just took the plunge, I guess, and committed to the project.
I'm glad you were brave. That's all
Well,
I can
thank you.
say.
That's
Thank you for
quite
sharing it.
relieving because I've been doubly brave, and I've started on number 2. So it's which is I am a duck hunter, and it's commenced illustration last week. So
Congratulations.
I've doubled down with only a couple of weeks of feedback and responses to this first one.
Yeah.
I've just gone for it because I can feel it myself as a parent of kids that I want to be outdoors and active, and I want them to have a passion themselves, or to see what passion looks like in a parent, and to see what pathways are available to them that they can choose. And
because they mirror what they see and what they're exposed to. So let's be the mirror that's adventure and getting out in the wild and seeing different things that you wouldn't normally see. And like, why wouldn't you want to encourage the next generation to do that?
Yeah. And I think and caring about those places, I think that's an important step. Hunters actually, over time, what we've developed is a greater care for the wild places where these things can exist, and even sometimes a great care for the private properties that we hunt on, and how they are managed, and doing what we can to assist those people, or at least live that journey with them. And that comes with just that connection to the place. And it's an ultimate paradox, and this book deals with that we care about the things that we want to hunt and kill for various reasons. But it just is how we feel about it. Like, I care about deer as much as I want to get a deer. It just is how I feel about it.
It's a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. It draws me to the place, and it's an unfortunate reality that in the world that if you are an observer of nature, the outcome for nature is probably going to be poorer. But if you're a participant in nature, your outcome's probably going to be better. And I think, we've had a long period of being observers of nature rather than participators of it since sort of, I guess, the colonialism phase in Australia, and through farming is one, and then there's nature is separate, and we keep the two completely separated from each other.
Whereas it should be connected.
Tight balance, and that people need to be in the city, and that the bush just needs to be left alone and no one should touch it.
Yeah.
And that's the only way, I think, to actually, it's one of the ways to destroy it.
You need custodianship. You need someone. It's the same. It's the same for me as a home becomes a house as soon as it's not loved. You've got to be in there. You've got to be nurturing it. You've got to be tending to it. You've got to be looking at what's going on. And the only way to do that is, and I think that's probably why the hunting, I was the same as you. I got into hunting as an adult. And it's that custodianship of the beautiful magic places that we get the privilege to go and hunt in, kind of becomes part of you, and you kind of get that connection to wanting to protect it. And it's just, so talk to me about your entry into hunting. Like, how did that start?
I was on the periphery of it for a long time, just growing up originally in southwestern part of Sydney. So I grew up around that Campbelltown region, but right on the edge of the bush. So I was always out in the bush doing things and making little bows and arrows with friends, like, stealing little components from building sites and stuff to make bows and arrows from reeds and nails and various things we can find, the drawstring from our stretchy pants, and doing that kind of stuff. Really, it must have been there. It was always there. And then as I grew up, we moved out to sort of Western New South Wales, like around the Wagga area, and that exposed me to farms and a bit more of the night spotlighting for foxes and rabbits and things like that, and a bit more chance to actually shoot a rifle or a shotgun. So I sort of was there, but I never took it on as my own personal thing until my wife and I had moved to the Upper Hunter of New South Wales, and I was working in what I would call a fairly soulless kind of, like, I was working in the mines in civil construction, and there was just such a big gap that I needed to fill, because I really enjoyed hiking and going out bush and camping, and I hadn't done it for a while, just pursuing young family life, trying to save for a mortgage and things like that. And so I just took a hike one day in the national park nearby, and as I was hoofing my way uphill, I turned a corner and there was this fallow deer buck just feeding on the edge of the bush track, and he just kind of lifted his head and looked at me, just stared me down, and I sort of stopped and went, what do I do here? Like,
Oh, that's incredible.
Obviously everyone knows about deer, but I didn't know really that deer existed in Australia. Maybe subconsciously I did, and maybe I had been exposed to it, but it never quite, I guess, triggered for me until I'd seen one up front, 30 meters away. Yeah. And he sort of looked at me and peered deep into my soul, and we had that kind of couple of seconds of communicating, and then he just barked, jumped the fence, and just melted into the bush as they do, like somehow, no more sound, no more sight, it just melted away.
Just gone.
And I just was like, I had one of those crazy moments, when you whooped and holler to yourself, like completely awkward moment like that. The only other time that's happened, it happens when you get a trophy animal, you get a deer on the deck, you might whoop and holler to yourself a little bit. And I've also done it when I've been honked by a sambar and had a moment of just like, what an amazing experience that is to
pinch myself moment.
Oh yeah, rattled too. Like that noise just penetrates your heart and your soul. And so,
which is what it's designed to do, right?
Yeah, and alerts everyone else around that there's danger, yes. But that's key, and that's in this book too. We do we do get a deer that barks at the main character and runs away. So yeah, once I had that moment, it kind of I got back home and just straight away went into research mode. I started to Google, YouTube, books. I like to read, shock horror. I like to write, but starts by liking to read first.
Yeah.
So I've always liked to read, and I started to buy books about hunting. So all the Kiwi pack and rifle type books and deer culling books, the American stuff, Meat Eater and things like that, and sort of went down that pathway. And then of course YouTube, Netflix shows, and then eventually just logically moved into getting into it myself.
Natural progression.
And then at the same time wanting to express that as I started, so starting to write articles for Australian Deer magazine at around the similar timing to getting into it, or getting my first couple of deer. And so that's my pathway as an adult. So I was in my 20s when I first started properly hunting mostly deer.
Yep.
And like anyone who's young, I sort of set, because I was old enough to be like, how do I want to do this? But young enough to not really understand everything about it, but to have that overconfidence, like I know exactly what I'm doing, or I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I started getting to go, for meat only and for these, and I set all these parameters on myself. But as I've explored more styles of hunting and explored more options for hunting, I'm starting to really expand my range on what I would like to hunt. Started to get into duck hunting. And now for the first time going to be traveling to New Zealand specifically for a helicopter fly in, fly out Himalayan tar hunt, which I've just I've watched every video there is to watch of New Zealand that we can get in Australia at least.
Yes.
There's so much more that you can get if you live there. Maybe I was born in the wrong country. I'm very proud of our country, and our opportunities are amazing.
Yeah.
But there is also this, short flight over the ditch, and you open up all other avenues, many other avenues. And that has been one that I have been thinking of and dreaming of for a while. So I've committed to that for next year.
Fantastic.
So that's purely a trophy hunt, realistically. Like I'm sure we'll eat some of the meat at the time, and I'll gift any away that I can. But I'm going there to support an industry, to support a conservation methodology that I agree with. And hopefully to come back with some, taxidermy or a rug and a Euro mount. That's how I'll probably end up going about it. And that's
some cool stories to go along with the whatever you're able to bring back. It's the memories and the stories that will live forever as well. That you That's incredible. That's definitely what you're doing next year is on my bucket list. I've got that firmly in the.
Oh, that's great. I'd much rather a beat up second-hand car than a brand new one, so I could do things like that. That's what's changed in my lifestyle. Where I want to commit my time and my money is definitely to these things, and that's a big transition from just being someone who's in it for for a bit of meat. Free meat, as we like to call it when I'm talking to my wife.
It's the most expensive free meat I've ever come across. I'm just going to say.
Exactly right. And it takes a long time to make it back, that's for sure. Particularly with my style of hunting, yeah. But that's kind of my inception, my journey into it. And then the writing part of it was just something that like I said, from reading and just noting things down. It must just be something that comes to some people. Like I'll just wake up and make notes in my phone or sit down and write things out one day. And I'm absolutely at the beginning of that journey, no doubt about it. I know that because I read a lot and I know the quality that I aspire to.
Yep.
Comes to writing, but it's been very refreshing and it helps to get good feedback because I know that if I take this to a conventional editor, that they will find things on it that the meter is out a bit or the rhyme or the grammatical error. Like there might be some little things in there. And well, I know that that's the truth because the second book I've gone and worked with an editor and it's gone from like 90% great where I loved it. And I even like I wrote when I first wrote it, it actually made me cry, the second one, because of the way I deal with this new hunter, younger this time, a 13-year-old or 12 or 13-year-old going out for the first time alone, supervised by dad, but doing it on their own. Dad is supervising, dad is not hunting, dad is not shooting, dad is just there. And it's her and her dog, and she gets her first ducks and that moment of like happiness and joy and like whooping and hollering and carrying on, because that's how you feel when you do these things for the first time. But then you are faced with the reality of it, which is just this, this thing that now is yours. Like you've taken a life to achieve this thing that you wanted to achieve. And there's an inherent emotion that comes with that I'm trying very hard to explore in this writing. So, and that book does it about as good as I've done it. And my original ending was much more adult and there's a word didactic, where I was kind of like telling the reader why it's so important. But then I've reworded that because the important thing with this stuff is kids don't want to be told what to do. They want to be shown. And so show, don't tell. So I've tried really hard to just show how amazing, exciting, but also challenging and, like some of the best lines in the second book when it comes out is about, about the hunter being so happy with what they've done, but that the hard work, same as this one, has only really just begun because now my fingers are going to be sore because I'm going to be plucking those ducks like that. I'm plucking them. I'm saving all the offcuts for the dog as her treats. This is meat for the family. And it deals with all of that the whole circle of why someone hunts, from the practice, the excitement, the challenge, right through to the animals themselves and protecting where they are and what they are, and then what use and value they have to us as humans and have had forever and will hopefully have for the rest of existence. So it's rounded like that. I mean, what book can you buy that does all of those things in one place?
It sounds incredible.
This one's out, but the second one will be out hopefully by February is the goal, January, February, before the southern states have their duck season. But this current one, I guess, it's out now. You can buy it off Amazon if you.
I was just going to say, give us how, like, we've talked about it and I absolutely love it. So how do people find you? How do they follow you? How do they support you? How do they get your books?
Okay, so I'll go with the finding first. So I have a website, thevenisondiplomat.com.au or .com. They both go to the same place. And that's where you'll find a bit more information about me, and you'll find a link to the Amazon sale of the book. So Amazon does this thing called print on demand. So you place an order. The printers in your nearest city that has a printer will print it and post it. So the Amazon version is a paperback with like a high quality paper print inside. And that is on Amazon also with Kindle. So you can do a Kindle version if you don't want heaps of printed books at home, but there's a more accessibly priced Kindle version. But I have also done a print run myself. So I've got physical printed copies that are done in Australia, so done by Southern Impact in Melbourne. And by printing myself, I've been able to enhance or increase the quality of the paper inside the book, as well as the way the colour comes out. So those versions I've been selling myself, so hand selling, been selling them wholesale to hunting stores and online. So the Australian Deer Association has bought a whole bunch of copies, and they're
Fantastic.
retailing those online. So definitely, if you're a member of them or you want to support them, I recommend first go to them. They have that high quality, high print version. Then a couple of other stores have taken small orders. If you go to Braidwood, which is in New South Wales near Canberra, they've done an order before Christmas, and a few other stores in the Hunter Valley and such. But people can also reach out to me. So Instagram is mostly where I promote everything. So I'm Rob Baldinger, or the Venison Diplomat on Instagram. So that's my tag, the Venison Diplomat. And so if you reach out to me there or on Facebook and provide me details, name, number and email and your address, I'm happy to invoice and do posted copy direct. So that copy is $25, and I'll do a signed copy to your daughter or son, or to you if you're an adult who wants to buy it. And I will sign that and post it. I've been at the post office a lot lately, but it's important to me, like that word of mouth and generating support around this and starting really small and honest. And if that means more work for me, then I'll just do it just to share it, So that's another good way to get your hands on it, is to contact me on Instagram or Facebook, or write me an email, thevenison.diplomat@gmail.com, all one word. And with those details, name, phone, email, and your address, I'll post you an invoice on either text or email, and then I'll post you a signed copy, and that's $25 for that individual copy. It's $23 on Amazon plus postage, and the wholesalers will sell it for various retail amounts, but generally $25 at a hunting store is or on an ADA website is how you'll find it.
So affordable for such an important message to such an important generation.
Yeah, and look, it's a lot of the cost comes from the illustration part of it, definitely, and obviously the print cost. And so I've tried to make it as accessible as possible, and my goal very much is to just make the money back from the first one to pay for the second one to pay for the next one, and just to kind of keep the stone going down the road. Is that the analogy? I don't know. Just keep this thing moving along. I'm definitely not out to make billions off all of you folk. Like, the goal is very much just to keep paying for this passion of mine, which I enjoy anyway. I'll probably just keep doing it if it was for free, but to do it to then lose money is also not a great option. So I'm just trying to kind of just keep it kicking along, and just to keep working on these little projects like this. And yeah, it's going good so far, and I've been getting really good feedback. And I also, for non-hunters, I've been getting some challenging feedback. It is, you'll know, you've read it, there are a few challenging scenes towards the end of the book. It deals with death. It deals with the result of that death being the meat, the animals butchered and bagged and taken back for a meal back at the campfire.
But so that is such an important meal. That is such an important message, because we need to educate the next generation that your meals don't come from coals. Your meals come from somewhere. And
it's an irony that it's the most challenging part that I've found with this whole thing is, like, you don't get a choice once you start reading this book. You're forced, like, you turn the page and there it is.
Yep.
And that's life. I understand that as well as someone who does it, but it's such a hard thing to communicate. And I'm torn at all times, because I'm sending it to friends who aren't hunters but know that I am, and I'm getting that feedback like, oh, well, my wife was a bit confronted by this bit, or wasn't too sure if I should have read it. But then they do it a second or a third time to their kid, and then the kid goes, and they understand, and then the conversation, the doorway and the conversation is opened, and the understanding is there. And that's all I ask.
Yep. Education.
All I ask is just to understand why, how and why, and to support us when the time comes that we need the support, as much as I will support them when the time comes that they need the support.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of, I guess, venison diplomacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is to share these things with people in the best light that we can, in a way that is palatable to them, so that they just are at least an advocate or an ally in our corner when the time comes that we need them. And that's community. That's what it is.
Who understand that. And I always go back to I love the whole ecology of all of that sort of stuff. And, we we take an animal that is deemed a pest, so we're removing a pest from the environment. That animal's had not just one bad day, it's had maybe a bad 30 seconds. You're not going to get more organic than that. You're not going to get fresher than that, because you're straight onto that animal, you're processing it in the field, you're doing what needs to be done, and you're consuming that meal, as opposed to going to Coles or wherever and buying a T-bone that's goodness knows how old, and how was that cow raised? What was the environment? Well, you'll never know. I know the environment that the meat came from, because I was walking that environment before I took that animal. So I know where that animal's come from. It just makes, to me, it makes perfect sense. And I think it's books like this that start the conversation for people to go, I hadn't actually thought about that. I have always just picked my meat up from Coles and hadn't thought about where it come from.
It's funny.
Now we're thinking about it.
This is now Chinese Whispers, but I was talking to Dodge, who's just headed up Wild Origins Australia the other day, and he'd gone to the expo down in Melbourne last month, and I think it was Joe Barrett, who's like a wild game chef, and she talked about how you pay more and you support like wild caught fish, but then when it comes to wild caught or wild hunted game, they're either labelled as a pest and demonised to the ends of the earth to justify spending so much of our money to annihilate, to eliminate, yes, to destroy,
yep,
or you're not touching it at all because you believe that there's something bad about it because it hasn't had intervention. And so we're definitely down that middle ground of that like, you know, I still support my local butcher because we also like chicken, and
yep, we're the same.
And I know that he is good about where he sources that. And when I don't have venison, it's the first place I'll go as well.
Yeah.
Or directly to the farmer, because a few of them are doing that now, which is great. Like the fact you can go to a cool room and you can buy like meat that they've had mobile butchered at their property. Like support that 100% of the way. If you're lucky to do that, and if you're not, become mates with a hunter, because they're gonna give you the goods. You're going to get this high quality meat, and it is high quality. You eat a venison steak, you eat a normal steak from Woolies, as you said, and it'll be you'll never go back. It'll be bland, chewy. You'll be turned off. The smell, everything about it. Yeah, look, the first day that I had a deer hanging off a mulberry tree at a rental property in Scone, and I was butchering it up, I had all this like sweat and anxiety and emotion that came with that experience until I started doing it. And then it was just an immediate, like, this is the right way to do it.
Feels right, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was just as natural as things come. And, you know, cooking that meal up and then getting more proficient at it, better at it, and now living off that as our red meat supply. Yeah. And then expanding my avenues, getting into fishing a bit more, getting into ducks, rabbits, hare, that type of stuff. Trying to get a bit of variety. It's been great. And I grow a garden too, and that's been really nice to kind of balance all those things out.
So good.
Yeah.
You know where everything on your plate comes from. If you've gone to your freezer and you've got the venison roast out of the freezer, and then you've gone and you've picked the thyme and the rosemary and the whatever else that's growing in your garden. I'm doing this because that's where my garden is.
Be proud enough of it too that, like, example, I cooked up a venison roast the other day and then, you know, ate the leftovers for the next 3 days as cold cuts on my sandwiches. I'm never going to throw that stuff out, you know, because I know how much effort went into it, but also it tastes good as well. So it's going to reduce wastage. My goal is just that kind of 1 out of 7 meals supplied, you know, by me or by my family is the goal. And if we all did that, we would have a better balance in Australia of reliance on agriculture that might be pushing the limits a little bit sometimes on what it can actually achieve, and allowing a little bit of room, and also having a respect for how hard it is to make food. And that's only going to be better for the farmers in the long run.
Exactly.
We're not going to, you know, I never want to beat them down because I'm not a farmer. I definitely respect what they do. Yes. What I don't respect is what happens once they've lost control of those animals and it goes through a process that's when it can fall down.
100%.
It's centralized, it's globalized in its way, and commercialized as much as possible. It's minimized and packaged as small as possible, to be single convenient meals rather than big hunks of meat like it used to be sold that you would have to cook and eat over the week.
That's right.
And so they're all the things. It's all part of a journey to just understanding and knowledge and a pursuit of wild things. It's just good for you, really, in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for jumping on this, Rob. I really appreciate it. I'm looking at your website over here now. You've done a cracker of a job on the website. Call to action, guys. Head over, show support. I say it on this channel at least 1,000 times an episode. Support local, buy local. You're not going to get more local than Rob. He's out there, he's doing it, and he's sharing the stories with our next generation, which is only going to make our community stronger and better in the long run. So thank you for taking the chance. Thank you for being brave, Rob. We do really, really appreciate that you lent into doing something groundbreaking and that hadn't been done before, and it's an amazing book, and it's an amazing conversation starter. So thank you so much for all your hard work and effort in making it happen, mate.
And I'll return the thanks, because the support I've received from people like yourself and Tobias, like immediately, and now you've seen it and it's justifiable, but because you've enjoyed it. But like I've been getting a lot of support, which I didn't expect. Coming out, I expected a few more gates to be up, and so it's been really great to kind of see that there's people that are aligned with what I'm trying to achieve with this and trying to share. So thank you, and thanks for making the time tonight. Yeah, it's been a nice conversation. It's amazing how quickly 45 minutes can go when you talk about this stuff, and we could have gone for much more, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, but thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see you around the show circuits and whatnot next year, because we'll be down for SHOT Show, we'll be down for Deer Expo and all that sort of stuff. So if we don't see you but in the flesh between now and then, we'll definitely be having a coffee.
Oh yeah, I'll be at those things next year. I'm definitely want to kind of get out on the circuit as this spreads around a bit more, and I just want to hear the kids' stories. I want to hear kids their favorite parts. I want to sort of chat to them and help develop an even better understanding of what the people that are like me when I was a kid want, so I can keep doing this for sure. Fantastic.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching right through to the end. Remember, like, subscribe. The love that we're getting in Gun Traders Land is absolutely incredible right now. So I do appreciate everything that our community is doing, and it allows us to support people like Rob, who's fighting the good fight for us. So we wouldn't be able to do that without you guys being behind guntraders.com.au and our YouTube channel and all of the other socials that we've got happening. So thanks everyone for your support. Jump on, make sure you support Rob as well, and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.